I grew up in the Christian church, so my parents were religious. I had lost my grandparents at a very young age, so death was part of our sort of family story. So I was very aware of death at a young age. You know, where do we go when we die, and what happens when we die? A 5-year-old, a 9-year-old, I remember asking my dad, "What happens after this?" Nobody had any answers for me as a teenager. All my friends went to a Baptist church and I went along with them and really loved it. Although the singing and stuff was a little bit weird, the rock band was also a little bit weird. People speaking in tongues, people falling down. I just thought, this doesn't feel, it seems like a show to me. Like I'm watching a TV show. And when you have a rock band, I just thought, oh, this is weird. And I'm extroverted. I went there for the social aspect, and my friends were there, but it was never really settled in my heart. In our church, and you would tell other people your sin. Of course, it was just so mortifying, right? And I witnessed hypocrisy within my own family and within the church family as well. And that really bothered me. And then when we read the Quran, it talks about hypocrites all the time. There was a girl, we were downstairs in the change room and we were getting ready for our shift. And she said something about putting on lipstick. And then she's like, "Oh, I can't, it's Ramadan." I was like, what does that mean? And she's like, "Oh, if I lick the lipstick off my lips while I'm working, that's technically eating and we don't eat." And I was like, "What do you mean you don't eat?" And she goes, "Oh, for a month we don't eat." I'm like, "You don't eat? What are you talking about?" And she's like, "Oh, just from sunrise to sundown." I was like, "Oh, okay, interesting." Didn't think anything of it. And I didn't really know anything about Islam at all, but I didn't really have any feelings towards it, negative or positive. It was just very neutral. And then I knew when I got into university, I wanted to study religion. And because I wanted to understand why people are hypocrites, wanted to understand about life after death. You never know which dua is going to be answered and when it's going to be answered. And in my final year of Berkeley, I did a semester abroad with Dr. Bazian in Granada, Spain. And I learned all about Islamophobia and Muslim Andalusia. And I talked to Dr. Bazian and I said, maybe I should explore this for my MA thesis. And he's like, "That's a great idea." So I got into NYU for my master's program. And that's what I studied. I studied Latinas who are converting to Islam in the United States. And I was interested in how does that process work? Because I was going through it myself, right? And I thought, and I didn't know any white converts. So I was like, well, how does it work? And they're very Catholic and they have a love of Mary and Jesus, peace and blessings be upon both of them. So I studied this whole idea about conversion, but not being able to talk about it because there's a lot of Islamophobia in California. And even in my NYU professors, they're like, "Why do you want to study conversion to Islam, Ali?" And I was like, and I said this to my professor. I said, "I'm thinking about converting to myself." And she was horrified. And she studies Islam at NYU. She makes her whole career is studying Islam. My friends and family, everybody was just like, "Why do you want to do this? You're not joining a cult, are you?" But I had literally no support system. And so I backed away. And then I studied, I did another master's program at Columbia, the Master's of Social Work. I really wanted to work with Syrian refugees, a really important part of my life. So I studied, I was in the PhD track for social work, and then I ended up getting sick. So I studied, I was in the PhD track for social work, and then I ended up getting sick. So I left that whole program, and that was the closest I could get. I met one revert in New York City once. She had a pop-up shop for hijabs, and I met her, and I bought some hijabs, and I started going to the converts group at NYU. And then that's how I started. There was a Jewish person there that had converted. started with my thyroid, and I was talking to a natural healer, and he said, the reason why your thyroid is acting up is because you're not speaking your truth. And I was like, oh, like, ouch, that hurts. And I thought about that for a really long time. And yeah, because I wanted to be Muslim, and I wanted to speak about Islam, and I wanted to tell the world that I was Muslim, because it felt right. That was sort of that. When I got sick, it was several years of being very, very sick. I ended up getting cancer. And when that happened, I realized, and so getting cancer actually was the best thing that ever happened to me. Alhamdulillah. And one of the things that I learned about Islam is that, we don't talk about our sin, but, I always say, alhamdulillah for everything, always. And because I know that if I didn't get cancer, I might be still resisting that change.